My name is Khandker Habib, and I'm a professor at U of T. And my research background and a focus is more general, is the demand side of transportation and urban development. So I've been teaching here since 2010, but I'm an alumni of the same university. So I did my PhD in 2007, and then I joined the University of Alberta. I worked there for 2 years. I joined U of T in 2010. So once I moved here, I've been doing research in, as I mentioned, in general area of transportation demand and urban development. We normally track and look at the transportation system in two perspectives. One perspective is need for using the system and the system itself. System itself is a fixed physical and virtual and combination of multiple entities, which is fixed capacity, is pretty predictable in terms of capacity and the responses, stuff like that. The tricky part is the demand side because it involves human beings. So that's fascinating to me. So I involve in modeling demand for using the system. Modeling demand, I mean modeling people's choices, decision-making processes, how people actually come into specific decisions, specific choices that affects the transportation system performance. And in the long run, there is a huge connection to and fro between transportation and urban development. So any transportation system performance affects how the urban system will be developed. Our current Toronto is in its current shape because it has a great transportation system. So this connection is both ways. So my focus is more on the demand side, but definitely it takes care of the system performance in short and long run too. My research involvement I can divide into pretty much three components. So the fundamental first component is working within our group, and within the group of myself, and within the division of transportation engineering, we're 5 professors here, and we're 5 professors separately working in 5 very closely related areas. So we have overlapping and collaboration internally, that for sure. And then the second stage is collaboration within the university. And within the university, between the academics, and I work very closely with mechanical engineering department. I'm also an adjunct faculty of the Department of Forestry. It may sound a little bit deviating, but well, what we are doing in joint research with Department of Forestry, I'm collaborating with the Professor Khandker, who is interested in evaluating forest product or biodiversity and how it affects urban forestry, this kind of like of thing. And we're interested in applying my advanced econometric model tools to develop some sort of policy analysis tool for forest development, maintaining the biodiversity and urban form type of thing. And I also work with the Department of Geography and other Department of Sociology, so we have overlapping in terms of research, data collection process, and model development. And within the academic realm and then the outside university, I have strong collaboration with many researchers all over the world. So within Canada, I work with 2 professors in McMaster's. I worked very closely, we have a couple of publications, with 2 professors at École Polytechnique. I work with a professor in University of Alberta, and I work with a professor in University of British Columbia, and I work many other researchers working in Canada too. Outside Canada, I have strong collaboration with a professor from Switzerland, Professor Kai Axhausen. I worked with professors from UT Austin, Professor Kara Kokelman, and many others, you can name it. So if you're interested in more my collaborative research, you can look at my publication list and look at my co-authors. So I have co-authors from almost all continents. I have strong collaborative research with South American country Chile, and which a funded project for developing advanced trouble demand model and some sort of like that. So these are all academic collaboration, and we frequently interact with each other in the conferences and workshop, and we come up with new idea. We share our expertise. Like for example, currently I'm working with 2 practical collaborative projects, one with a professor in Belgium who are interested in evaluating people's mode switching behavior in the context of developing light rail transit, which is not there in a city in Belgium. So we have conducted a survey out there. So I'm currently modeling, along with my students, modeling the mode switching behavior model for them. And definitely it will be a fantastic work at the end, and we'll be presenting to good journals and conferences. So far my group has published around 40 peer-reviewed journals since I started my academic career. And among the journals, our focus is the Transportation Research Journal. So there is a series of transportation research journals out there, but our target is always good and top-tier journals, including Transport Research Part A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth, Transport Metrica, Transportation Research Record, Canadian Journal of Civil Engineering, American Society of Civil Engineering, all sorts of journals like this. And in terms of academic conferences, we are heavily involved in Transportation Research Board of Washington, D.C., which is funded by National Research Council of USA. So I am involved in multiple committees of TRB, what you call Transportation Research Board. I'm a member of one committee called Trouble Behavior and Telecommuting, which basically deals with advances and research development in the area of how telecommuting can reduce or can manage the demand for transportation system. I'm also involved in the committees of trouble demand modeling, trouble behavior analysis, and a couple of other committees. So every year we go along with my research students, go there and present our paper. This year we presented around 4 papers in TRB. Last year we presented even 5 or 6 papers. So every year we contribute heavily. So people who are interested in my research can definitely look at my personal website in the department, where we have a list of all papers, list of research topics, and all sorts of these things. And in terms of academic journals, you can search in top-tier journals. Also in terms of conferences, prime conferences, we attend our Transportation Research Board conference, also Canadian Society of Civil Engineering, TSE conference, CITE conference, CTRF conferences, and many other international conferences. I also make sure when I involve with pure industry in terms of consulting opportunities, that whatever work I do for them, I kind of take those data sets and make it available for my students to do further research on. And we publish paper on that type of thing. So we recently published one paper with the same organization I was referring to on one of the consulting works, which involved evaluating people's willingness to pay for park and ride stations of transit in Vancouver. I have another type of collaboration with industry who are purely consulting or profit generating industries, which is in terms of doing project with the help of NSERC. NSERC has a program called NSERC Engage. So I have so far completed 2 Engage projects, one with a car sharing company in Toronto, one with a Canadian Outdoor Marketing Bureau, and I'm pursuing one with ATR 407. These are industry collaboration with the help of NSERC, and eventually next phase of this collaboration will be some sort of collaborative research and development project, which will basically allow the technology transfer between industry and the university. So that's the other end of my research collaboration. So I take the research collaboration with the industry in a way of experimenting my theoretical models for very practical cases. I mean, in terms of the research at the university, we do conduct our practical research too. We go out and collect our own data, we test our model, we test for hypothetical policies. But while working with the industry, that gives us opportunity to test for something that would be real, and that's the scope I always take opportunity of. My PhD was on advancement of activity-based trouble demand modeling. Okay, so well, it sounds pretty technical though, but in layman term, we can say, well, we try to develop a mathematical model which can forecast demand for transportation system. And in very layman term, forecasting demand for transportation system means forecasting how many cars will be on the street, how many people will be moving which part of the city to the which part of the city in different condition in future in response to different type of policy situation, like different transportation land use policy you can think about. Like policy you can think about like imposing road pricing, imposing the lane closure, all sorts of these things. So the trouble demand models are mathematical models that can forecast demand in different set of conditions. Okay, so traditionally trouble demand model used to take the approach of very naive and aggregate approach, assuming human behavior is pretty much like any physical entity, like it flows like fluid flow, it attracts like gravity attraction, all sorts of these things, which works pretty much well if you think about very aggregate picture for long-term stuff like that. But it does not necessarily work for a supple transportation policy. Nowadays, we are interested in like a trouble demand management policy, teleworking, and the carpooling, ride sharing, and you name it, like imposing road pricing or car sharing. All sorts of policy which are very subtle in terms like does not necessarily affects the system that much unless people are responding to it. Okay, so modeling those type of responses is almost impossible by conventional trouble demand models, which call four-stage transportation model. So apart from that, the theoretical research has been developing for last 30 years on switching the theory of trouble demand modeling from conventional physical phenomena type of thing to more psychological approach, indicating the fact that the reason you are taking your car to the street because you need to go somewhere to get involved in some activities, right? So it's your movement and your need for moving on the space at different time period which creates the demand for transportation system, right? So my PhD thesis was basically based on that concept and then developing some sort of mathematical model which can take care of all fundamental human assumptions or psychological assumptions and develop a modeling framework that can capture all sorts of responses you can think about. Okay, so and this is a huge research area. I'm currently working on it. There's a multidimensional aspect to it, but my PhD research was entitled was modeling activity generation processes. It's fundamentally dealt with a optimization modeling technique, which is econometric in nature, that can forecast how you allocate your daily time and money within a specific urban space you live in, given that there is an urban form out there. Okay, so my PhD research contribution was developing a mathematical model. I call it Khandker demand system model or multiple discrete continuous extreme value model, which has a neat functional form which takes less data compared to its capability. It can forecast pretty much very accurately how people actually allocate their limited time and money resources in alternative activity type. So that was recognized by Eric I. Pass Award in 2007. But definitely it's one piece of many, many pieces I'm interested in. And my research group is working diligently to develop an operational activity-based trouble demand model, which is fundamentally theoretically consistent with microeconomics and human psychology. Okay, there are plenty of trouble demand models which are claimed to be activity-based out there in the world. We have several in Toronto too, but my model, which I'm planning to develop, will be more generic in concept, which will be sticking to the more fundamentals of human psychology, but will be developed based on microeconomic concept. Because I'm not interested in just simulating some number. I'm interested in a smart tool which can simulate numbers or which can give you the quantitative evaluation of alternative policy with the condition that the basis of developing those quantitative results would be based on microeconomic concepts, so that you can do the policy evaluation, you can do economic evaluation, you can test social exclusion, all sorts of policy responses you can evaluate with that.